Hello, you're watching news from Kazakhstan. I am Nurbek Svetakhunov. Uzbek president's official visit to Kazakhstan concluded on Friday, September 7th. Contrary to expectations, the meeting between two old friends, Islam Karimov and Nursultan Nazarbayev, was held in a confidential setting. Moreover, the leaders of neighboring states noted in near unison that the conversation was friendly and very frank. The Uzbek president even noted that such kind of negotiations were long overdue, a sentiment that was shared by his Kazakh colleague.
Я хочу поблагодарить членов правительств с обеих сторон, которые в эти дни порешали многие.
I'd like to thank the members of Kazakh and Uzbek governments who have solved many issues hung in uncertainty during these days. After watching our meeting and hearing the decisions concerning water, power, transport, trade and border issues, I believe everybody will breathe with a sigh of relief to know that our countries have always had a very close relationship and will continue this policy to the benefit of our countries and our people.
Было и будет налажено самое тесное взаимоотношение.
The parties assured of a confidential tone of negotiations. However, reporters noticed some tension between presidents during a face-to-face meeting and extended session. At a final press conference, the presidents of neighboring republics noted that one of the principal subjects of the negotiations was the mechanism for the joint use of Central Asian water and energy resources. It concerned transboundary rivers. In his emotional speech, Islam Karimov said that the countries located in the upper reaches of the Amudarya and Sirdarya do not respect international norms and rules about the use of rivers' water basin. He noted the ineffectiveness of Rogun Hydro Station in Tajikistan and Kambarata in Kyrgyzstan. The Uzbek leader said the projects developed in the Soviet Union at the time when the government suffered gigantomania nowadays pose a real threat to the countries that are in the lower reaches of the rivers. The hydro stations have been constructed in the place of tectonic fault. In case of a dam failure caused by an earthquake, water masses can flood entire cities in Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan. In contrast to the Uzbek leader, Nazarbayev was more reserved.
Все может усугубиться настолько, что это может вызвать серьезные не просто противостояния, а даже войны.
Things can get worse and cause not just a serious confrontation, but even a war. Therefore, when it concerns transboundary rivers, we must follow the decision of the international community. It says that the agreement of all countries that are located along these rivers is a prerequisite.
The website guljan.org reported on Friday that Aslan Muhsin submitted his resignation. The presidential administration head's decision following a series of scandals is allegedly his own. According to the website, Nursultan Nazarbayev has not yet signed the letter of resignation. The news was quite expected, and therefore experts immediately began predicting further rotations in the higher echelons of power. Opinions on the recent rumors were gathered in the next report.
The leading playmaker of Nazarbayev's team decided to quit. Aslan Muhsin, who has been head of the president's administration for over 3 years, resigned, according to the news published by one of the internet sites. As unnamed sources informed Guljan.org, Muhsin submitted his resignation last Saturday. Akorda disproves this information. He's in the office working. We don't have any information. Do you mean that nothing like this ever happened? Absolutely nothing. We're working and he's working too. So do you disprove this information then? Well, yes, I do, because he's in the office. In the meantime, Muhsin was absent today during the meeting of Nursultan Nazarbayev with President of Uzbekistan Islam Karimov, which is nonsense since the chief of president's administration is always present at such meetings. Rumors of the resignation of the most mysterious person in president's administration are circulating for a number of days. In my view, Muhsin's resignation would be yet another proof of the inside political struggle within the elite groups. And if resignations happen, this is often the outcome of such infighting. It means someone just lost. The resignation of the ex-governor of Atarau region, Bergey Eskaliyev, who has been closely connected to Muhsin, is another indirect confirmation of Muhsin's crash, which some feel has been inevitable. Since the end of August, the authorities neither confirm nor disprove the information of Reskaliyev's arrest. His whereabouts are also unknown. The member of parliament from Akjol party, Amanjan Reskaliyev, had to surrender his membership. The meeting under the closed doors took place today in the central office of his party. The outcomes of the meeting were not shared with the press. MP's fellow parliamentarians give only brief answers. We just discussed how we're going to work. During the second session of the parliament, expulsion of Amanjan Reskaliyev is not something we decide on, and we're dealing now with the purely day-to-day work issues.
Это прерогатива съезда, поэтому это совершенно у нас сейчас чисто рабочий момент.
Aslan Musin stepped too far, says the experienced opposition member Sirikbay Alibayev. He gained a lot of strength and the head of state could not tolerate it any longer. Musin has been operating on the fringe of the law for some time now. Many connected him to the events in Zhanaozen, and perhaps this deserves resignation to show the feebleness of Mr. Nazarbayev, because it was impossible to tolerate Musin's actions. At the same time, according to official sources, in the past 2 days, national leader had meetings with the Senate Speaker Kairat Mami and Vice Prime Minister Serik Akhmetov. It is not a coincidence that experts say the former could become the new chief of president's administration and the latter could replace the Prime Minister Karim Masimov. But even this cannot be viewed as the preparation for the wholesale reshuffling of the president's staff. According to Guljan Talk, president has not signed Aslan Musin's resignation yet.
Kazatomprom National Company changes its chairman of the board. Mirzak Shukeyev's contract was terminated early on Friday, reported Samruk-Kazana Foundation, the head of which Shukeyev still remains.
The newly appointed 32-year-old chairman of Kazatomprom, Kuandyk Bishimbayev, previously held the position of deputy chairman of Samruk-Kazana Fund. In the past, he also held the following positions: the deputy minister of trade and economic development, deputy minister of industry, the president's assistant, and the head of Arna Media Holding. On the other hand, Shukeyev served as the chairman of board of directors at Kazatomprom only half a year. After departure of President's son-in-law Timur Kulibayev from Samruk-Kazana Fund in February, Shukeyev came to replace him in Kazatomprom as well. Mirzak Shukeyev before Samruk-Kazana worked as the first deputy prime minister of Kazakhstan. Earlier, he served as the governor of South Kazakhstan region and mayor of Astana. According to some information, he is related to the Southern clan, the informal leader of which was Saribay Kalmurzaev, who passed away.
The causes and details of the explosion that rocked the town of Atyrau on Wednesday, September 5th, remain under the secrecy of investigation. Authorities refuse to disclose details of the incident. Experts are left wondering what took place in the oil region. Details are explained in the next report.
After a series of explosions in 2011, analytical experts included Western Kazakhstan in the list of potentially dangerous regions by rate of religious tension. Yet another explosion in Atyrau on Wednesday. It is not clear what exactly caused the explosion, killing 21-year-old Nurlibek Sakaouov. Political expert Doskushim made certain assumptions, but he's not rushing to link the blast in the residential area to the controversial leadership reshuffle in the region. I don't mean to relate this explosion neither to the latest leadership reshuffle in Atyrau nor the last visit of the General Prosecutor's Office. I doubt that corrupt officials of Atyrau could have committed this crime. They definitely wouldn't want to die this way. On the contrary, they're dying to become rich. I believe this has to do with an ordinary organized criminal group. Therefore, I wouldn't link this to the recent personnel changes. Experts and ordinary people will speculate on what have actually happened in Atyrau until the official version of the crime will be released, suggests the former Vice Minister of Defense Amirbek Togusov. He hesitates to answer whether this was a suicide bombing, as reported by the local media. The fact of the matter is that weapons and explosives are in high demand in Atyrau due to the widespread poaching. Perhaps this was an old stock of explosives, or some poachers were preparing to go hunting for caviar. That's why the explosives in the Atyrau region within Ural area are nothing extraordinary. Analytical expert Rustam Bornashov is wondering why would the ordinary Atyrau residents store such an arsenal of weapons. There aren't too many sources for the flow of weapons traffic into Kazakhstan. The borders are relatively open with Russia, North Caucasus and Kyrgyzstan. There is an internal trade of arms among ordinary citizens. This could be the perfectly legal source, let's say the hunters of certain clubs. After all, people tend to possess weapons. Another source is certainly a loss of weapons from national security, defense and law enforcement agencies, which probably takes place conventionally speaking. This hasn't been confirmed yet. However, any fire at a military warehouse could very well be the attempt to conceal the sale of any military equipment, including the weapons. Political expert Rasul Jomali believes that explosion in Atyrau was an unsuccessful attempt of terrorist act. According to him, it's obvious that the device was being prepared for suicide bombing. I believe this was obviously another preparation of a terrorist attack, which failed most likely due to individuals' lack of experience. We've had these incidents before when the terrorists blow themselves up, but the experience comes with time. However, the fact that these instances are becoming more frequent in the recent 3 years is very alarming. If this was an attempt of a terrorist act, then what was its purpose? In fact, the reasons for all the recent explosions in Kazakhstan are not clear. The incident on September 5th became another alarming link of emergencies. To recall, Blacklist started with a suicide bombing in October on May 17, 2011. A week later, another explosion took place in Astana. Then another two incidents occurred in Atyrau on October 31st, when an IED detonated in a garbage can on Kulmanov Street, and later an unknown man blew himself up next to Sararka Cinema. 2 weeks later, the southern Kazakhstan joined the list. In Taraz, 8 people were killed by the robber, later identified as jihadists. In 2012, Almaty residents learned about the terrorism as well. An explosion of one of the houses in Tausumal village next to Almaty occurred on July 11th, claiming 7 lives.
Young bearded men in short trousers, commonly referred to as Wahhabis, appear more often on the streets in Kazakhstan. The public remains ambivalent of the phenomenon. The next report attempts to find out whether it is just a fad, homage to religious traditions, or true belief.
Nurjan Nurtleutagi is on his way to the Friday prayers. He lives in the capital and has been wearing his beard for 5 years. He is convinced that this is the sign of a Muslim, just as the shortened pants. When someone tells him that the young man in Kazakhstan should look like a Wahhabi sect follower, he responds that every person has a right to decide whether to wear a beard or not. To look like a Muslim, to follow the Prophet, that is why we're growing a beard. Surely the beard has to be longer, but our faith will grow and so will a beard. Nowadays there are women that wear miniskirts and no one says anything when they see them. But once you grow a beard because of your faith, people notice you immediately. My father was against it initially when my beard was even longer than now. But in general, the beard should be like this, not shorter and not longer. This is the ideal length. But chairman of the Religious Affairs Agency Khairat Lama Sharif does not approve of the new trend on the long beards and short pants. The high-ranking official thinks that all these are alien to Kazakhs and came from abroad. Growing a beard and wearing short pants is an Arabic tradition. I view this as a first sign of Wahhabism. Kazakhs have a word, aksakal, meaning white-bearded man. The beard should be worn once a man turns 63, because our ancestors would grow a beard once they get older. Growing a beard when you are young goes against our traditions. Aksakals themselves are of the same opinion. They say a man should grow a beard once he turns 63. This is an age of the Prophet. To grow a beard when you're 20, 25 years old is wrong. They are still young, some of them are students, and they have all this nonsense in their heads. I do not approve this. The beard and all these things are related to Afghanistan, but I might be wrong. I have this feeling. These days there are young people that live in our neighborhood. They wear beards, but I am against it. I would not want my son to wear a beard. The Kazakh clergy declared a sort of war against these tendencies among the youth. As the Naib Imam of one of the mosques in the capital, Rashid Abudali explains, people do this because they do not really understand the fine details of religion. We should not connect religion with the beards. These days, even 15, 16-year-olds grow beards, though it does not grow on them yet. They grow a little one which doesn't even look like a beard. I tell these boys, shave it off. Time comes and the beard will grow. But in response, they tell me that not growing a beard is against the Quran. That is correct, but everything has its time. When such a time comes, when the beard becomes you, this will be the right thing to do. Rashid Abdouali told us that the Agency on Religious Affairs often conducts meetings where they try to explain how to interpret different aspects of Islam. Imam is hopeful that the youth will be more reasonable in their interpretation of Islam.
On to other news. The case over Kozlov, Sapargali and Aminov is nearing completion. Judge Murzabekov opened the court session on Friday with the examination. The first to be questioned was leader of Volga Party, Vladimir Kozlov.
His speech was convincingly and fully reasoned. Most importantly, Kozlov yet again clearly explained the goals and objectives of an opposition party in society, saying they should be familiar to any sensible citizen. Some observers were on the target comparing Kozlov with a political science professor giving a lecture to a student audience. He was rather careful and meticulous while interpreting definitions of certain words and phrases that public prosecutors and even experts of the Justice Ministry used so easy and perhaps even carelessly. Vladimir Kozlov devoted a major part of his address to the Skype conference with members of Volga Party pending registration and politician Mukhtar Ablazov. The defendant fully dismissed all accusations of the prosecutor, who insisted Ablazov is linked to the party since he was giving orders. Kozlov explained that Ablazov, like any other citizen, has the right to take part in events developing in the country and express his opinion on various issues. The oppositionist referenced the entire Skype conversation that included jokes and laughter, proving that it wasn't at all a gang meeting as it was portrayed by the state prosecutor prosecutor who drew excerpts without context. It was rather a friendly gathering of associates. Vladimir Kozlov's brother Dmitry, who lives in St. Petersburg, is spending his third day attending the trial. He will pass the expert evaluation on social hatred to more competent scholars and get their opinion on the matter. As a Russian native speaker, I can understand the difference between the change and overthrow of power. If an expert freely refers to these concepts, his qualification as an expert and generally speaking his knowledge of Russian language is questionable. If the expert has excellent language skills, he can perfectly communicate his message to the audience. In our case, it was clear that a person was struggling during his address.
Well-known journalist Sergei Dovanov, who is observing the trial, believes the sentence in this politically motivated fabricated criminal case has already been sent down from above.
According to journalists, the authorities are afraid to call Mukhtar Ablyazov to court because he may shed some light on many evil deeds of people in power. He believes that people are a bit shy and with built-in censorship inside, which was forged by 20 years of ruling of one and only person who prevents many of speaking out. I believe the decision was already made and was ordered by the top. It is just waiting to be announced. The trial is just being adjusted to the procedures, and it seems to me that slackness could be also spotted in the actions of prosecutors. But judging by the trial that took place on Friday and Thursday, I can say that there is a little rage as compared to one that was present in the press and on TV during the first days of the case.
Public activist Galilym Agiliuov arrived in Almaty from Aktau on Friday. Having been present at the court session in the case of opposition politicians, he claims Vladimir Kozlov's sentencing is a closed issue. The court does not listen so much to the party's arguments as it goes through the motions of performing procedural standards. Defense attorneys lack aggressiveness, therefore the tone of the session is set by prosecutors. Agiliuov also notes that testimonies of the prosecution witnesses are so identical that it seems they are a carbon copy of one another.
They have given absolutely identical testimonies. The words in their testimonies are the same paragraphs, the same sentences, and we pointed it out to the prosecutor. However, he said that one of the testimony contains words People's Front, the other testimony doesn't, meaning those are different texts. But apart from that, everything is identical. To recap, the trial on social hatred charges started in Aktau in mid-August. Vladimir Kozlov, leader of Alga Party, public activist Serik Sapargali and workers' leader Akshanat Aminov are in the dock on social hatred charges. Besides Article 164, they are also accused of constitutional system overthrow appeals, being a part of the criminal group and with the support of independent mass media.
In other news, Justice Minister Berik Imashov believes Kazakhstan's legal experts' conclusions need to reach a new level and advocate their acceptance abroad. He shared his opinion at a conference called East-West held in Almaty and also noted that an equally important issue is the standardization of methods of forensic medicine.
We have the goal of making evaluations of foreign experts probative. That is why we have to improve the quality of our work, from general organization to personnel recruitment. Participants in the process against the politician Vladimir Kozlov and the activist Serik Sapargali also have questions to the experts. The defendant's attorneys and the observers often voiced their opinion on the judgments of the political scientists and linguists and casted doubts in their qualifications. One such case was the analysis of the correspondence and personalities of the defendants, which resulted in a complaint from the defense. But court experts did not react to this in any way.
The Interior Ministry believes a choir of singing police officers will convince Kazakhstan citizens that the Constitution and the rule of law are observed in the country. The Interior Ministry ensemble's performance in Almaty on Friday was not just a simple concert, but part of an entire 10-day organizing campaign devoted to the Constitution and the promotion of Nursultan Nazarbayev's message. How successful is the campaign, head of the ensemble Colonel Satov did not clarify, but he added that they provide security and uphold the Constitution.
As a force component of MIA, the primary role of internal military forces is to defend the Constitution of the Republic of Kazakhstan and to ensure security. It shall be noted that the officers of this particular security agency were involved in Zhanaozen riot suppression in December 2011. The reporters addressed several questions to Colonel Mukhadgali Satov in regard to these events. In response, he advised the reporters not to use such harsh terms, mass execution, in regard to the actions of law enforcement officials on that tragic day. According to him, these were rather the unprofessional actions. Apparently, there must have been unprofessional actions by police officers. By no means this was an execution. Let's remember, a state emergency was introduced by the law and the decree of our president during that time.
Relatives of inmates in Kazakhstan region's colonies arrived in Astana on Friday to demand a stop to the lawlessness. They claim prisoners injured themselves out of despair. Recently, inmates of Colony 159/5 staged a riot and troops were pulled in. How did the supervisory authority respond to complaints is covered in the next report.
The relatives of inmates of Kazakhstan region penal colony organized a real demonstration in Astana. About 20 people marched from the Bayterek to General Prosecutor's Office building, demanding to stop mass beating and murders of prisoners. However, the demonstrators failed to submit the petition to the registry right away, as the reception office shut their windows on them. You have to accept this application before 1 p.m. Employees of the reception office of the Prosecutor General kept ignoring the complainants and left the premises building completely once they realized they are being filmed on camera. Failing to turn in the petition, the demonstrators proceeded to storm the General Prosecutor's office itself. Ruslan Uzdoyev, the brother of the convict murdered last year, became a human rights activist. The routine search activities involved beatings of the convicts, which caused the death of 2 prisoners, while 3 other prisoners were delivered to Abay Hospital in crucial condition. According to the relatives of prisoners, troops were brought into the colony on August 31st. People heard screams on the other side of barbed wire, even through the music. Olesya Didenko, the wife of one of the convicted, is confident that her husband could not bear the beatings any longer and cut his own throat, yet she still hasn't received the confirmation. The results of the searches are not clear either. According to the witness, the law enforcement officers were confiscating the personal belongings of the inmates. Even Bibles and Qurans were trashed. Nevertheless, the leadership of the penal colony gave the standard answer to all the questions, assuring that everything is fine. The chief said that there were no casualties and we were just fine. However, 3 or 4 casualties were officially reported. What should we do? Who do we go to? Who else do we have to appeal to if we're being ignored even here? The staff of the regulatory agency experienced a wave of an outrage. People wanted to know why weren't their petitions accepted and whether it was a violation of their constitutional rights. Someone in the crowd even said that it's time to change the citizenship with this type of attitude. Finally, the General Prosecutor's Office employee allowed a few people to proceed with a pile of petitions, yet the group insisted on having all of the complaints addressed. In the end, the demonstrators were given a promise to have every petition resolved. You're the ones complaining about the ongoing mess. Our employees will be sorting out each case in each particular correctional facility. Can you introduce yourself? Is the media allowed to film our conversation? No. Once the relatives of the convicts received promises, they went to submit the petitions, yet the reception office employees filed the documents without any enthusiasm. As reported earlier, immediately after the troops were brought into the penal colony, the director of the Kazakhstan Bureau for Human Rights, Roza Kalbekova, appealed to the Minister of the Interior and the Attorney General, calling for an impartial investigation. None of them have responded yet.
The newly revitalized campaign to promote a society of universal labor has once again activated in Kazakhstan. It includes staying at work longer than prescribed by the code and follow the example of North Korea, where a typical workday lasts 10 hours. It all began with a Kazakh citizen's letter to the Labor Ministry, where Jandos Sarsinbayev offered to legalize a longer workday. Gulshara Abdikalikalova issued her response on her blog. Details in the next report.
The head of state's proposal to his fellow citizens to work from dawn to dusk, just like in Korea, drew great public attention and disputes. The media immediately remembered a certain Jandos Sarsinbayev, Kazakhstan citizen who left a proposal in the blog of the Minister of Labor and Social Welfare about the increase of work hours from 8 to 9 for all Kazakhstan citizens. According to him, it will also allow the implementation of President's initiative to turn Kazakhstan into a country of universal labor. His proposal received an immediate reply from the authorities. Your suggestions are taken into consideration. It should be noted that international norms play a special role in the regulation of labor relations. In terms of international labor rights, Kazakhstan has ratified 19 fundamental conventions of the International Labour Organization. The labor code currently used in Kazakhstan was created with consideration of compliance with international obligations of Kazakhstan as well as the balance of interests of workers and employees. The head of the state went even further and advised to adopt the Korean practice. In Korea, people work 10 hours a day, but some Kazakhstan citizens are not thrilled by this idea. They say for blue-collar workers, such extension of hours is a big risk. And what about those who have small kids? What time am I supposed to pick up my child from kindergarten? I'm absolutely against it. It is nonsense. It may lead to slavery.
Эти наши права на 8-часовой рабочий день их же утверждали еще.
8-hour workday is our right, which was established on the onset of the previous century, and this norm is being used for so many years and no one had complained since then. Is there a reason for extending it now? Those who want to earn more are already working more, but I think for those who work off 8 hours a day, it is quite enough for them. The MP and leader of People's Communist Party, Vladislav Kosarov, is also against the extension of working hours. Almost half of members of his party, except for pensioners, is from working class. He explains that forcing people to work more than legally accepted 8 hours is violation of their rights. Workers of the world defended the right for 8-hour workday, and what's the meaning of this initiative if the half of the population is unemployed? On the contrary, we must strive for higher wages and reduction of work hours. For the trade union leader Marat Moldabekov, the proposal on revision of work hours serves as a signal that country's economy is in trouble. The expert strongly believes that norms of labor code and international conventions should not be violated. From the point of view of ILO, it would be a step backwards. Therefore, the government has to search for other means to enrich the state budget. If it had built plants and factories many years ago, then we wouldn't face such issues now. To recall, on July 10th, the president announced a new program titled Social Modernization of Kazakhstan, 20 Steps Towards a Universal Labor Society. The activists of the ruling party reacted by launching the anti-laziness and strive for labor campaigns. Meanwhile, the attempts to spread the idea on extension of working hours in the society are not welcomed even by MPs.
This is all we have time for now. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to tune in to Vlast KZ on Monday. Have a great weekend.